issues, making people understand what we've been through, the past, present of our issues, then and now. It's coming to your door, so put you where you belong. It's right round the world, then and now. Race, political violence, national issue, yeah. Fake news not get any space, then and now. The most critical thinker, please come on, is now on the internet, then and now. It's now online, it's now online, please come on. It's now online, it's now online, then and now.
Right, Fambulemuna, good evening. I want to say hello to everybody, wherever in the world you may be. This is not just a quick broadcast, of course, not anything, yeah, when one of we actually scheduled program, and are just based on developments in the Republic of South Africa. And so if we can please share this video, let everybody join the broadcast, and there is a number there if you want to call, and this is the time for you to call anyway and let your views be known. This is a major incident, in the tip of the map of Africa, South Africa, and at the same time we read a long-time president, 95-year-old Robert Gabriel Mugabe is dead. Of course, divided opinions, but whichever way you see him, this is now one of the pillars of African emancipation, the empowerment of African people. Yes, he did get a lot of things wrong, but you therefore equally look at the circumstances, and this now the acts of you, and let the dead lie in peace, please. Okay, so let's share this video, because particularly today or tonight, now just a quick one, maybe 45 minutes or 1 hour. Really not planned for go beyond 1 hour. We share the video, please. Let me get some more music back.
The past, present of our issues, then and now. It's coming to your door, so put you where you belong. It's right round the world, then and now. Race, political violence, national issue, yeah. Fake news not get any space, then and now. The most critical thinker, please come on, is now on the internet, then and now. It's now online, it's now online, please come on. It's now online, it's now online, then and now.
Okay, Uncle Harry Williams, thank you very much for sharing the video. This is now the former director, or IG as we can call him, Inspector of Police for the Republic of Sierra Leone, where currently they watch this tape as well and help us share with video. Brother Ahmed Barry, welcome to the program. Nkrumah Johnson. Nkrumah, by the way, is a name that I'm in love with, Nkrumah, because I'm a Pan-Africanist and I love the late Kwame Osajifo Nkrumah. Okay? Yes, Ahmed, I'm online. Now, just a quick broadcast. And this broadcast, basically, ladies and gentlemen, it's going to be really short. But you can't consider yourself as somebody where they na the public domain, where they share information. And when big news happen, then you not participate, you not partake at all. Yes, Mr. Bobo Labo. How are you, my brother? Welcome to the program. And remember that there's a number for let you call if you want for participate. This is if you want for participate. This is not local politics. This is geopolitics. This is international politics, and this is about current issue. So I believe say everybody get opinion. Now this is the thing. It's about South Africa, ladies and gentlemen. It is about South Africa. The thing that we are seeing, which is currently ongoing in South Africa, it's not something to write home about. It's not something to smile about. It's not something to be hypocritical about. It's something so serious that everybody, and specifically Black African, needs to weigh in. I mean, can you imagine you've gone to seek refuge because you flee your country because of certain, insecurities? Could it be war, economic warfare, and the rest of it? And you've gone somewhere. And you've toiled hard, very hard enough to maintain your dignity and your respect. To bring up your family because you will have made family, you will have had children, and you need to send them to school. But you're striving hard. So you appear to have had a shop in a place where predominantly there are other people. It's not you. You are a stranger, but you're doing well in the community. But it's not like you're getting it free. You are putting in. You are working. But this is not the first time it's happening in South Africa anyway. And this is quite disgraceful. This is quite shameful. We know in the history of mankind has been responsible for hurting themselves. And certain people, they in the position for milk waiting happen. Now the Republic of South Africa, when they say not happen, it did happen, but it did to certain people the advantage because for centuries now, a certain group of people have been trying to portray us as savages, as brutes. So when things of this nature happen, they're just happy to show it and say, this is what we've been saying all along. This is the evidence. Okay? But we want to put all of that aside today, and for the short time we can spend together, we want to talk about what happened in South Africa. So let's take a little bit of look at South Africa. What is South Africa? Who are South Africans? Let's look for a little bit of insight. Ladies and gentlemen, when we look at history, we know we've been told over and over, and there are reasons for us to believe this, that the African race, now the oldest race we waka na the face of this earth. My own belief is, and concept, things they want to think about. I believe this strongly, but I'm not going to go about the make noise about them, because when they try for talk about achievement, the achievement get for go along with achievements. So I say me that the oldest person. The oldest person during my lifetime, certain things have been achieved. It could be geometrically, it could be scientifically, it could be in the field of literature, art, and you name it, some kind of discipline. But then me where they boast or they try for take the mantle for say, now me na the oldest, we do not exist within this radius of things that will happen where people actually see say are beneficial to the human race, to the present, yet are not contribute nothing to it. Why then will I want to be loud about it that I did existed in that period and I not make any contribution to the achievements of that period? So which are the try for say family is, I want to believe that we Africans are one of the oldest people, if not the oldest, that ply the face of this earth. We will waka about na this earth. We na the oldest. Well, it seems like another race come and overpower we in that sense, not to the normal way you go look them like by force, but another power came, or another race of people come through many other things that are questionable, many other ways that are questionable. Today they happen for be the leader of the world. But before I come back to this again, let not lose sight of what I want to talk, or my premise what I try for create on today's episode. You see, Fambulem, in 1652, the continent of Africa be already they exist. So in 1652, a group of people and come on other side will not look like the people and when they can meet now this particular continent and this particular region called South Africa, now in the kingdom. Yeah, welcome to the program, brother Ahmed. And I don't already say, if anybody want to participate, a short program, but it requires, say, in times like this, you don't need to be a Pan-Africanist. In time like this, where things of this nature, they happen in South Africa, one of Africa's major and serious republic, then we need for rub mouth inside. We get different opinions, and then opinion and they, now we need for yeri, so that we able to understand who say X stand, who say Y stand, who say Ahmed stand, who say Clarence stand, and the rest of it, and then we forge a path forward. So if you want to take part, send me an invitation. You either call the number, telephone number is on the website, or it's on the page, or you send me an invite or WhatsApp. I'll bring you come on live, and then we talk about what is going on. So on the basis of we na the first continent where Papa God make, for those of us who are scriptural, where Papa God make. For those of us who are scientifically inclined, we are the first people who walk the face of this earth. Now make we so conditioned, we so strong, we so ready because we've seen it all. Worst terrain, rough style of living, and the rest of it. It don't condition we follow we withstand the test of times. So in 1652, a group of people called the Dutch settlers come on another continent altogether, not far away from us, present-day Europe. The Dutch settlers then come down South Africa and try for settle. Before this they happened, there was a shipwreck, and this is famous. And when we want to do the argument, please, let we check the information there. There was a shipwreck, because remember, say, with man, it don't tell white people, you know, they don't explore the face of this earth. You will want to give this to them that they are a smart bunch of people, because in life, you have to know what you want. Not about sentiments, not about emotion, which black people, me and you, are full of. When something happen, it's like, okay, I left hand with God. What's kind of rubbish this? We are the most praying people on the earth, Mother Earth. And I repeat, the most praying people on Mother Earth. But yet we are the most disadvantaged and vulnerable people. Saying this, I'm not implying or insinuating in any sense we have to stop or we should stop praying and hoping and having that spirit of optimism. But most especially being scriptural, being spiritual. Say, hopefully, Papa God, you know, you go take hold and make things change. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm just talking about reality. That we are one of the most praying people, yet we are one of the most backward, low-thinking, disadvantaged, and vulnerable race of people on this earth where everybody they take advantage of. We suppose for one feel say we are the best, and by many respects, again, I do want to feel that we are the best because we've plied the face of this earth for centuries and we have survived. Every black person is so conditioned for withstand the test of times. Rough, smooth, whatever, hurricane, whatever, tornado, whatever. We've withstood all this test of times. Yet we are still here and persisting and only trying to live. So it's like say it's about time that we try for change the game. Okay, somebody. It's about time we try for change the game and notice it. We too. Okay, we are too. Okay, we've got a guest. Guest. If I can just hold you there for 1 minute, please, because I did try for develop the premise, and I did sway back and forth, but I go try for compact and quickly. Since we get a guest. So, ladies and gentlemen, the show tonight is about
issues where they happen in South Africa. And I've been just to try to develop what in South Africa mean. Who are South Africa and who are South African? Where does it lie? Why what is happening there is happening now? Okay, although not for the first time. So 1652 we get the Dutch settlers, but before the Dutch settlers in 1647 we been get a shipwreck in the history of South Africa where the Boers talk. The Boers I will describe them soon, but when they talk, here about South Africa or the history behind them, there's a very important name, Pambulem. So if you want to do your research, remember to look up for the name Jan van Riebeck. Riebeck is so critically important in the history of South Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got a guest, and we all should know, or if we don't know by now, the xenophobic action where they take place in South Africa. There's plenty of xenophobia right now in South Africa. So if you watch the title of the program, it is Xenophobia in South Africa, how South Africans are shaming the Africans. We are not all South Africans, but the common agenda or denominator that we do have is we happen to be Black people and we are all Africans. Guest, ladies and gentlemen, is a very familiar feature on this program, but always we've got new people, so you have to bear with me if I ask you for just introduce yourself and where you're calling from. And since we know the issue, if you can just go straight into it, please.
Okay, thank you very much, Brother Prince, and thanks to all the viewers and listeners. Me, now Mohamed Kamara, commonly known as Supermed, and I live in the United Kingdom. Thank you for giving me the opportunity for joining for this program, because a very, very important program. But like when you want to take the historical perspective, I want to just add one thing almost say, one problem where we the Black race all over the world, wherever we're in the Caribbean, in Africa, on our home, in Europe, and everywhere, we not show love for one another. And this don't affect we greatly. If you look, one of the most horrible things where we suffer, because before slavery, actually, we are one of the strongest races in the world by then. We be establish ourselves into very, very good communities. When I don't begin show hatred among ourselves, because the slave master that will go capture, we bring come with ancestors in Europe, then they exploit that hatred among ourselves. So now so they be able to get away easily. And unfortunately, that ramification they will suffer and today. So until we begin show love for ourselves, and let's say we always will look alike, so we not look alike for nothing. We get this dark thing, we not get them for nothing. We get them because we share the same ancestors, regardless who say you did. If you're in Europe, you're in Asia, you're in the Americas, we are all African. One famous reggae musician say he be talk and say, forget about your nationality. That's not just a creation, not a reality. The reality is, yes, it's a church. I think that's it.
No matter where you come from, as a Black man,
you're an African.
You're an African.
You see, so we can't forget that love there for we say yes. We are Africans. So whatever circumstances, we're African. Now we look after ourselves. And a typical example, may you see what make we suffer with disadvantage past all things. Since when this nuclear weapon business don't come on at the world, now one great nation, unfortunately, that nation, they be South Africa, they don't attain nuclear weapon technology. That's another way it's man the ruler.
Yeah.
The Europeans or the Americans, they never ask them to give up the nuclear weapon. But until when Nelson Mandela kind of power, the first thing them cajole them for do for give up the nuclear weapon. Because they know say nuclear weapon equivalent to power. And if you don't get power, you're vulnerable and you're weak. So the whole of African continent, none of us boast nuclear weapon. So we are weak. Now look at a country like Pakistan. Now poor country, but they boast nuclear weapon. So if you want to see advantage for Pakistani people, anywhere in the world, you get to think twice. So then people are then country capable for destabilizing your own country. So I have to be careful. We will get the opportunity. When a one country will get the opportunity, we will protect the continent. We'll give up that nuclear weapon. Now we are just a vulnerable continent where any of the major countries can able to invade with continent and do anything when they wish for do power. So they see that suffering in the country.
I know which for interject, because I really want to give you the time for let you flow. But I just wanted to make it clear too, because you cite a very, very important issue. Now the calculation of which we are talking about. South Africa as a white republic, as a settler republic under white domination, did have nuclear weapons. Okay? Part of the condition, it's not like we rejected it, but part of the condition for independence or for granting us the country itself, for it to be owned again by the people who initially owned it, was they had to give up the nuclear weapon. And that goes back to the state of Israel. If you understand the history, the nuclear weapon that got taken from South Africa ended up in Israel, the state of Israel, which most of us again don't understand the difference between Zionism and the state of Israel or Jewish people. But I just wanted to make that point clear, Mr. Kamara. Sorry for interjecting.
Yes, thank
Please
you
go
very
ahead,
much.
please.
Because, you know, anything, like you say, very important. Now we trace the history. The history is very, very relevant. For now we put yourself in a projection. Because these people know, say, when we get power, we'll be able to defend ourselves. And now that come to the real issue at hand here. The real issue again come to love or not like we say. Because maybe don't they follow up this history. I mean, this them African settlers, how they go now South Africa long ago, and they read up on them. The first people who begin comment about them, now the white South Africans say since we ANC don't kind of power, then just left them border open so that they get so many migrants, and that is not good for the country because one day the country not going to maintain the population. So this statement we don't come out. Now we see, unfortunately, some of the black South African politicians themselves begin making a statement and say some side in South Africa where you go there now almost dominated by foreign people. Then don't forget for no say yes, we're all Africans, we're under one. Then even the president in South Africa, the last election, in the next statement say South African are for South Africans. So this emboldening the unfortunate, not very open thinking black South Africans say, well, we're enemies and not only white way control all where they impoverish we so, but now the Africans where they can set do a small business and get their survival, now they're our enemy. So now they don't turn and fire away from the real oppressors. So the same old vulnerable people like them for attack them. And this now then the surprising thing because the government of South Africa don't let the attack they happen. Like what we said earlier on, not to one thing. It will happen several times. And we see say most of the victims are part of the Zimbabweans and stuff and Somalians most of them are West Africans. We don't see videos them when they chop Ghanaian migrants and then the chaplain and kill them with cutlass them. Then they set fire and then burn them alive. All man snaps so you look them. I mean the horrific video we see this being a woman them picking a man and then burn them in.
Superman, if I can just ask you to flow in between the local parlance, English, Creole, and then English, in and out. That would be most appreciated. I just noticed in the chat room that we got a lot of foreign guests.
Okay, yeah. Thank you very much, Brother Prince. Yes, that's very, very relevant because for the benefit of our fellow Africans who probably are not familiar to our language, I'm going to be flowing in both in English and to the local language as well for other listeners. Like the brother is saying, let me just recap again what I said earlier on. What we're seeing in South Africa does not just happen in isolation. We've seen this when it started a while ago, white South Africans making statements that the South African borders are all open. Now they're getting so many other Africans coming in, overpopulating the cities, and this will create problem for the South African as a nation in the long run. And unfortunately, some black South African politicians also told the same line, making short statements. This was setting all this scenery of what we see now. And the worst of it all, the current president of South Africa, President Ramaphosa, in his last campaign, was making statements like South Africa is for South Africans, meaning it's not for other foreign Africans. So other foreign Africans should not be in South Africa. This has emboldened these unfortunate South Africans to attack their fellow Africans. And we've seen this, they've attacked on Ghanaians, attack on other Zimbabweans, and most of the time, I must say, are part of the Zimbabweans and the Somalians. Most of the people they concentrate the attack on are West Africans. We've seen them burning West Africans alive. I mean, we've seen all sorts of horrendous videos. This is really, really, really shameful, disgraceful, deplorable, and there are no adjectives to describe it. But again, let's return to our own leaders in West Africa, the ECOWAS leaders. What have they done since this attack have happened? Many, many attacks. It hasn't just happened in isolation. It's been happening over and over and over. Like a Somalian guy was saying, he said there are not a day go by in South Africa one Somalia has not been killed. Can you imagine? Every day in South Africa, they will kill one Somalian, not a Somalian who just died by accident or anything. No, it's going to be killed by South Africans, black South Africans. Every day, they kill one Somalians. This is genocide in itself. They are trying to ethnically cleanse all Africans from South Africa. And this...
Okay.
And this... let me just stand, sorry, but...
Yeah, go on. Okay. The guest, his video is frozen. Let's see what happens again. But ladies and gentlemen, today, the 6th of September, 2019, we are talking about the situation in the Republic of South Africa, and we've got very, very critical and important guests on the program.
Yes.
Yeah, just 1 minute, please, because you closed it. Now you're back. Yes, hang on there 1 minute. I want to say welcome to Jaine, Brapo, Jaine Brapo. Yeah. I just saw Sister Vera Tia Lippins. Jaine is in the United States. Vera Tia Lippins is in Belgium. Welcome to the program, my sister. And Sister Sandra Kemash just signed on, and the rest of it. And there are so many others. But we are talking today, the 6th of September, about how African or South Africa, largely an African country owned by Africans, have turned their anger on fellow Africans. I mean, it is a situation that is unacceptable. And the guest that we've got on now is speaking directly to that situation. And some of this is being influenced. I mean, the situation now is being influenced by leaders, including the president of South Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa, including the only man I heard speak a little bit away from what is happening is Julius Malema, the firebrand, who was once upon a time an ANC deputy leader or junior leader. But the rest of them, including a minister, while the soil is so raw, a minister that I heard myself, I couldn't even finish the tape, was blaming the foreigners while they were being murdered. And who are these foreigners? None other than people who look alike. How does the world look at us today? How is the world? Although it does fit a pattern, because to some degree, some people have been trying to describe us, when I say us, Black people, as beasts, as non-humans or half-humans. So some people are happy to show those videos to say, this is what we've been saying all along. But Mr. Kamara, our guest, is on the line, so I will give him, the chance for him to continue to develop the story and pinpoint issues which is happening in South Africa today. Mr. Kamara.
Yes, thank you, and sorry once more again. Let me just make this point again. Right. It is very important for all Africans, wherever we are, to realize what are the root causes to these problems and to do something about it, because it has not just happened once or twice, it's been happening all the time. Africans have been murdered in South Africa on a daily basis, and the South African government has failed to protect Africans in South Africans. And this is something very serious, because the South African government in itself, the ANC government, has failed the people. They failed the South African people, and now they are turning that blame to the ordinary Africans who are living and working in South Africa. But I'm saying again, the West African leaders, where most of these people are coming from, we want them to have a backbone. We want them to stand up. We haven't seen any tangible action. They haven't taken any strong action against the South African government. Why have they not called for an extraordinary summit to the African Union in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia,
Yeah.
and table this matter.
Yeah.
That we want the South African government to assure us that our citizens that are living in South Africa are going to be protected. We will accept anymore any of our citizens being murdered like animals in South Africa. Why are the West African head of states, head of governments in West Africa not doing that? We had few of them saying, oh, these were our brothers. We used to fight with them in Napa. We don't want that anymore. This has moved from that state because these people,
Okay.
other African, the West African people mainly, had suffered a lot. Lots of them have been killed in South Africa. When is it going to stop? When are we going to stand up for our people?
Okay.
And this is very, very relevant because, like I said, we have to have the back of our people, and our governments, our leaders have to have the backbone to say enough is enough. We cannot tolerate this anymore, and we are only the South African government responsible for what we can clearly see as a mini genocide going on in South Africa.
Okay, Mr. Kamara. Okay, Mr. Kamara. I mean, there is plenty of emotion into this. I saw some of the videos myself, and I really got moved. I couldn't even end some of them. And I get your point. Just before I move on, I just want to welcome Freeman Doman. Welcome to the program. Richard Gajua, welcome to the program. And brother Alvin B. Hawk, welcome to the program. And my student, my fellow academician, that's about 40 years ago. That's Abdul Jonas Sise. I've just seen him on the forum about 40 years ago. One white to red. I'm getting a bit emotional, but we've got something, more serious to talk about here. So, Mr. Kamara, you've spoken, in very strong words as well. And a point that you made, which I want to capitalize on, is we haven't seen African leaders come out strongly enough. They could have called for an emergency AU African Union summit. They could have taken this to the United Nations because they are a subscriber to the world body, the UN, okay? But all things taken into consideration, what could Africans or what can African leaders or countries do in terms of the situation in South Africa? Are there business interests in other countries in the region or the wider Africa that African leaders can take advantage of and say, you know what, we're not going to allow this to happen. We're going to stop this. Or can they impose sanction and embargo? Are there any leverages? And if there are, what are they?
Yeah, thank you, Brother Prince. There are many, many leverages, like you said. For instance, MTN is the biggest, actually, South African telecommunication company. And one of their biggest markets is in Nigeria. The biggest telecommunication company in Nigeria is MTN. So most of the South African company, like for instance, in Sierra Leone, where I hail from, the biggest mining company there, Koidu Holdings, is a South African company. So there are many, many leverages in terms of business because South Africa is one of the biggest, the biggest markets for most of the South African companies is Africa. Actually, people don't know that. So there are many things the African countries could do in terms of economical aspects that the South African economy will suffer greatly. And it's also, there are many other links politically as well. The backing, the political backing in South Africa is having from the AU is massive. So if the West African bloc, ECOWAS, come up as a bloc, call for an extraordinary summit at the AU and table this particular motion, this is going to be big. And the South African government has to listen to it. Let's take, for instance, if these people, or maybe it's just one or two American people being treated like this in South Africa, the South African government will not dare allow that to happen because they know the ramifications, because they know the American government will not let this slide. They're taking advantage because these African governments sometimes don't stand for their people. Sometimes they see their people perish, like what we see in the Mediterranean. We never see this African government come together and said, we're going to do X, Y, Z to prevent this or to stop this altogether. So, I mean, like you said, we've been treated, we Africans, badly everywhere we go. because we haven't got power. We are powerless. We are weak because we are not united. We don't love one another. And our government does not cover us. They don't look after us. So this is unfortunate. But I think this particular issue, we've got to take it to task. We are urging it of West African government. We are urging governments like Mozambique, Somalia, and Zimbabwe to come together and table strong motion against the South African government. The South African government has failed its people. They failed the people. And because of the failed people, they have no scapegoats to use. They are using the poor African migrants who are working tooth and nail to make ends meet in South Africa. And that's unacceptable. We should not accept that. We should not, and we should make the whole international community know that we're going to take punitive actions. And I think we have lots of punitive actions that we can take against the South African states.
And that leads me to my next question to you about the political will, because you said a lot there. And like I say, passions are running high, emotions are running high. So according to you, there are many leverages that can be used, by African leaders. But the issue here is there a political will? Because listening to you as well earlier on, you're saying that this is not the first time that this has happened, which is quite true because it's on the books. And the couple of times that it did happen in the past, I can't remember what actions were taken or whether any serious actions were taken. Do you think in any way, shape, sense, or form that this will be differently addressed than the previous? Because this is not the first time it's happening.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I think what me and you are doing now, Go Platform, we're talking about it. I think so many other platform people are talking about it. The Students' Union in Nigeria, they've taken up this action to defend their people in South Africa. I think the leaders have to do something about it because they've been put in a position that they have to act. There's no way they could dodge this anymore. There's no way they could look at the other cheek anymore because the people are demanding action. Like I'm saying now, most of the MTN business.
Well, I'm going to stop you. I'm going to stop you there. Yes, Sister Kadi, welcome to the program. I'm going to stop you there for just a second, to highlight something. Because yes, you are right that action needs to be taken. But my question was, is there a political will for this action, to be taken strongly? Because you will look at commerce, for example, you did mention a telecommunications company, a giant, and this is a money-making machine. Are the Nigerians willing to sacrifice this? And I ask this question because when your nationals are facing such conditions like the Nigerians are facing in South Africa, what you will then do is to expel the ambassador or whatever. But what I'm understanding now is the closure of the South African embassy in South Africa was done on a voluntary basis in terms of a fear of repercussion by the local. So it's not the Nigerian government that took action to say, look, we're expelling your embassy or your ambassador. Everything that I've read shows that out of fear of repercussion, the South Africans themselves, their governments were the ones that shut down their interest in Nigeria, which is the major country and citizens that are affected by the current crisis.
Yes, that's absolutely true, Brother Prince. But what I'm saying here, the Nigerian people themselves, like the Nigerian Students' Union, have taken up this tax and they've demanded their government to take action. So the government is there for representing the people. We know some of these corrupt West African governments looking on the other side because maybe they got personal and gains from these different companies, South African companies that do business in a country, and they don't want to spoil that. They don't want to disrupt the status quo. But in that case, the Nigerian people themselves, other Africans, all over the diaspora, are saying to these different governments that you ought to take action. You've got to take action. For them not to take action, it's going to be very, very difficult, or they're going to put their position into probably, I would say, they put themselves in a very, very risky position. because I believe the people want to see action, and the people are not ready to let this lie anymore. The best thing they could do is for them to get guarantee from the South African government that their various citizens are going to be protected. Because what we're seeing here, this is a mass mobilized attack. We're seeing these people gather in their hundreds, in their thousands, looking out for Africans that they could attack. So where are the South African police? What are they doing to prevent this from happening?
It's a good question there that you're asking, Mr. Kamara. And Sister Effie from the United States, Fatmata, welcome to the program. And again, by the way, the lines are open if anybody wants to make a contribution or anybody wants to come in, because we've got like 15 more minutes. If no one is coming in, I'm happy to have Mr. Kamara because he's quite a brain and he's able to make the arguments and etc. Mr. Kamara, here is the point. Okay, sister, somebody just make a contribution on this. South Africa did that because they know what is coming. Yes, Sister Kadi, if you can elaborate to say what is coming, because I almost want to touch on that. So I will leave this. Okay, this is why they interest in Nigeria, they close their interest in Nigeria. Okay, that's a sister making a contribution on the forum, but we'll wait as she develops it. Let me go back to you, what you say, Mr. Kamara. And I want to bring you come back home, because what you're speaking from, this particular crisis has got a multifaceted picture or frame to it. It's not only Nigeria, South Africa, and from the beginning you did say multiple nationals from different countries, okay? The fact that you are from a country, let's say Sierra Leone, that's where you're from, and are you, or what would you be advocating for your government to do to show solidarity with the people who are presently being affected? If you were recommending something to your government, the Republic of Sierra Leone, what would you be saying to your government in terms of actions that they will take or supposed to take?
Okay, thank you again once more, Brother Prince. I would say to my government, I want you to work in solidarity with those other West African governments to call for an emergency summit at the AU to discuss this issue. And if there's a consulate or ambassador in Sierra Leone from South Africa, I want my government to summon them to the foreign ministry in Freetown and put them and make clear to them that the Sierra Leone government condemn the action that is happening in South Africa, and the Sierra Leone government, all the South African governments responsible for what is happening in South Africa to other Africans. And this cannot be accepted. It cannot be tolerated anymore, because it's happened so many times. And the Sierra Leone government will work collaboratively with other West African governments to make sure, if possible, take any sort of action necessary to stop these actions, to stop these things from happening, and to all the South African governments to account. I mean, any whatever circumstances we find ourselves, it doesn't matter. This issue has to be addressed. Because like I said earlier on, the biggest mining company in my country now is a South African company. And even in Sierra Leone, we've had records of South African people abusing Sierra Leoneans during our conflict, abusing Sierra Leone people, abusing Sierra Leone children. So there's a pattern here. And we've got to stand up to these South Africans that this cannot be tolerated.
Yeah, that is true that you have to stand up to bullies, because if you don't stand up to bullies, they're only going to continue bullying you. But then you have, with typical example, you have to look at a situation like Sierra Leone that you mentioned, where there's a South African company doing mining with the government. I mean, they've got licenses from the government. The government, of course, can rescind those licenses. It's going to be difficult, but they can revoke, rather, those licenses or licenses. But to a great detriment. Now, looking at the situation, which is very, very serious and dire, but looking at the nation state, from an individual perspective, do you think the government of Sierra Leone will be willing to go down that route in which they need the money and at the same time they want to show solidarity with other countries? Which way do you think your country will go till it comes to that?
No, thank you once more again, Brother Prince. What I'm saying to my government, I'm not expecting them to suspend or rescind any license at the moment. They cannot, it has to be a stage by stage process. It's up to the South African government. If my government supports other West African governments to call for an extraordinary summit at the AU and to all the South African governments responsible, it depends to the reaction or to the action of the South African government. If the South African government can say to those governments that they are going to protect, they are going to make sure all the Africans living in South Africa are protected, and that this will never happen again, and that people who are affected, their families and their relatives will be compensated, and people who perpetrated this crime, these horrible people who attack these people are gonna be brought to justice. They're gonna be tried, and justice will take course against these people. Then I think the Sierra Leone government will be well satisfied with short actions. But if the South African government continue to fail to protect other Africans in South Africa, I think actions will have to be taken. It has to be step by step.
But here is the thing, Mr. Kamara. Of course, I mean, injustice requires justice. Justice delayed is justice denied. So no one is going to say no to what you're saying. But I asked the question earlier on about political will, because we already see that the situation there is being manipulated. I mean, we're not even there. Just on social media, a minister coming on at the earlier stage while the wound was so raw or is so raw, instead of providing or speaking in measured terms, this minister found a way to sort of incite or provoke or blame the people who are meant to be the victims. Why? Because it has become political, and this is what it's been. And the sister made the point earlier on on the platform, Mr. Kadikadi, and I think you endorsed that, or you said that earlier on as well, which is the situation is not new. This is not the first time. Xenophobia in South Africa is right. So we come back to the numbers, statistics. 29% of South Africans are unemployed, and these are young, energetic people. Also in South Africa, because I'm trying to drive your attention somewhere, so I'm going to try to develop this carefully. There is plenty of tension ongoing in South Africa as we speak. The late Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela was the one who kept the nation together. The nation is still somehow together, but there are fault lines, and this is no joke, it is serious. The people who own the land are calling for the expropriation of the land. They need the land back, in short. And that motion is being tabled in Parliament. White farmers, white settlers are being driven out. Some of them are still there. Most of them have left. Bundles of them have gone to Russia, where they're settling in far-flung places like New Zealand and Australia, where they are being accommodated. But their numbers are in the thousands, because remember, they came to South Africa in the Orange State since 1652. And even before 1652, maybe 4 or 5 years earlier, due to the shipwreck. Okay? So these people are still there. They own land that the South Africans are contesting, that these lands are not yours. So there's been plenty of tension, and we've been seeing it coming. Mr. Kamara, this might be provocative, or I'm saying this in a theoretical sense. Could this tension, which was being directed towards farm owners, white farm owners, is it being redirected to Africans, fellow Africans who have just gone to look for a living? It's not like some of them have not been found wanting, but this is not normal, but it's natural in a state in which you will find people who commit crimes. But to attack an entire community just because they are trying to live so all of us can live is difficult for some people to comprehend. So my question to you, from what I've just developed, could there be another angle to this crisis, the anger that we're seeing being directed at one particular group of people who are meant to look like the same people. And yet the others are relatively safe.
Yes, thank you. Absolutely. Well, you've developed a good narrative there. And it's very important because when we started this topic, we spoke about power. You know, you look at all the players in South Africa, the least powerful are the African migrants. They know the white South Africans are originally came from Holland, the United Kingdom, so they've got very strong allies worldwide. So the South African government, which has failed its people, this ANC government, has failed the people of South Africa. We knew the last President Zuma is being investigated for corruption. We knew President Thabo Mbeki was very, very incompetent. So this successive ANC governments has failed the South African people because even repatriation of those lands, there are policies here. They should have prepared their people. They should have bring the necessary skill for the local South Africans to be able to better themselves. So they failed to do all that. And now they're looking for the weakest people in society to be blamed. You know, whenever they say whenever two elephants are fighting, it's the grass that is going to suffer. So this is an issue here. So because of all these failures in terms of the South African government, successive ANC governments, they've cast the blame onto the simple and ordinary and powerless African migrants. Because again, the African migrants are powerless because we as Africans have failed to love one another, have failed to support one another, we failed to look after one another. And the impact of it is felt all around wherever Africans are. In Europe, in the Americas, in Asia, we are the people that are treated the least.
Right, Mr. Kamara. Just because of time, because I promised that we're going to end it between 45 minutes and an hour, and we're almost approaching the hour mark. So I just want to go through some things quickly, here with you and our audience. Mr. Kadi has also posted on the forum, which is quite true. Even, give or take, it might be 80 and 85%, but largely true that 85% of the land, and we must add that the arable land that can be harnessed, cultivated, planted on, and the rest of it, is owned by the minority. Where in this world, for goodness sake, has anyone seen this in which 85% of the land, mind you, and I say this, there is no title deed. And you are a landowner, before you own a land or when you own a land, you have to have a title deed. And apart from the title deed, you as the national of a country, the thing that makes you, you're patriotic, nationalistic, and already, you're burning and blazing for your country is because the land belongs to you. In this case, are people that came in 1652, people that came and settled, own 85% of the land. And this is going back like hundreds of years ago. Hundreds of years on, 2019 fast track, the same people own the vast majority of the arable land. And the people who actually own the land that are in the majority are actually now demanding. So you can see the restlessness. And this is what I'm trying to develop. And somewhere, somehow, it seems like this restlessness has been harnessed by some and directed at a community which is just minute to the problem.
Yes, again, these same farm owners who own, like you said, nearly 90% of the land in South Africa have corrupted the South African elites. These South African people who are governments, these ANC governments, and the top brass are profiting. They are enriched through this corruption. So they don't want to tackle the main problem here. They're always running away from that problem. They don't want to tackle the issue about land that was taken away from their ancestors illegally. by these white settlers. They don't want to tackle that. They don't want to face that anymore. Why? Because they're getting kickbacks from these white farmers. So they always keep pushing that issue backward, keep pushing that issue backward. And now what do? They push their firepower onto the ordinary, poor, and powerless African migrants. That is why the West African states, most of them, should come together and say enough is enough. We are not going to allow you to kill our people like animals anymore. We are holding the South African government responsible. And if this does not stop, we are going to take punitive action against South Africa. We are going to call for even the AU to expel South Africa from anything to do with Africa, the African continent. And it's not going to stop there. Even we're prepared to sever business ties with the South African nation if this does not stop. So strong actions needed to be taken. And I hope our leaders, more of our West African leaders, have got the backbone to stand up for their people, because this cannot continue. They should not allow this to continue. This is disgraceful. This is terrible. I mean, words cannot describe it anymore. And this has to stop. So it is very important that this South African government and the South African people get this message clearly, that we are not, as Africans, going to tolerate this anymore.
Yes, Mr. Kamara, I feel your pain. I feel your pain. I really do. We've already approached the mark already in terms of the time. So there was something else I wanted to ask briefly. But before I go into that, I just wanted to make our viewers to understand that the people that we are talking about, they are settlers. They came from elsewhere, and then they settled on the land. They settled on the land somehow. I've heard ridiculous arguments, from the most ridiculous to the most preposterous arguments, that they bought the land. We know that chiefs were cool. This is why, in some respect today, some continue to think, you're like the Africans, and they're not capable of thinking, you're like being rational. Because of our, your humanity, we embraced everything. And then you come, we had vast land. If you come today, and this is the culture, you will be given land. Go and build what you want to build. You have a ranch? Look, if you can take it from here all the way miles and miles, you can have it. For the other people that came, they came with greed and selfishness. They came, here with an agenda. And that agenda, 200, 300, 400, 500 years on, is what we're seeing today. The Boers, that's the people who settled in South Africa, are foreigners. They came from elsewhere. And the people of South Africa accommodated them. They settled in an area called the Transvaal and the Orange State in South Africa. These are the original descendants, and somehow they became known as Afrikaans or Afrikaners, depending on the nationality or the language that they speak. Social cleansing, social engineering to buy into the narrative, but nothing can change the fact that you don't belong there. Now, I'm not preaching incitement. I'm just saying what the facts are. They got upset with the British because when slavery was abolished, the British drove them out. The British freed the slaves. The British empowered other people. It's not like the British were clean. They only did it, because they themselves had selfish interest. And this is what we need to understand. And as they drove the Dutch out and took their slaves away from them by so-called emancipation, the Dutch or the Boers, they moved into the hinterland of the country and thereby began to, interfere with the locals. This is what we see in present day South Africa. So they call themselves, like Afrikaans. Two things I want to ask you before you go, because the time is gone. Mr. F.A., welcome to the program. Donald McIntyre, Georgina McGeorge. Thank you so much, family, for tuning in onto the program. And I hope you share this video. It's a short video, but it's so essential. And we got our guest, Mr. Mohammed Kamara, speaking to us. Next week, not next week, but our next broadcast, we're going to have a Liberian academic. He's called Clarence J. or Yukon J. Madison. He's going to be here next. We're going to talk about politics, but not politics specifically. We're just going to talk about generalities. His country, Liberia, the history of it, how we came to where we are, what's the way forward, Liberians in the United States and in the wider diaspora. That's what me and Mr. Clarence Yukon J. Madison, we are going to be talking about. But for tonight, while we are trying to wrap up, we've got an exceptional guest in person of Mr. Mohammed Kamara, aka Superman. Superman, that's what I wanted to say. I want you to wrap up this South African issue. And before you go, we should not forget, depending on how people see it, but the fact of the matter belies that Africa has lost one of its greatest sons. I'm talking about Robert Gabriel Mugabe, who died today at the age of 95. Of course, he's got faults of his own. Of course, did you think he developed those faults on his own? Of course, the answer is no. Did others help here to make those faults become his downfall? Of course it is. We could go on and on because the evidence is available. It's like you taking ownership of a farm, but you don't have the technical know-how, and move away from the technical know-how, but the tools, the materials necessary. Some will say, but if you don't have it, why did you take it? They forget about the circumstances. So that's what happened. The tractors broke down, and then you refuse. You, Mr. Mohammed, you are a manufacturer of tractor wheels. In your own interest, you refuse to sell me the tractor wheels. So I can't drive the tractor, so the farm cannot go on because why you had an agenda. But we could go on and on. But Mr. Mugabe is dead at the ripe old age of 95. Wrap up the South African issue. Take a look at the Zimbabwean and the Mugabe issue. And then we'll end the program right there. The last word is all yours, my friend.
Okay, thank you very much again, Brother Prince, and thanks to all your viewers and listeners again. And it's very important for us to say, rest in peace, Comrade Mugabe, because this man is a true Pan-Africanist who unfortunately was undermined, and in his latter years, he could not control the system anymore. And like you said, there were loads of players that were involved, and now we see the state of Zimbabwe as it is. And that's why it's so ironic and so sad, because people like Robert Mugabe were pinnacle, critical in the struggle against apartheid South Africa. And it is so sad that Zimbabweans in South Africa today have been slaughtered. These South Africans forget that even people like us, small Sierra Leone, we were struggling, we were fighting, we were demonstrating for South Africa. I knew South Africans that I was in school with. Like you said, we share the same alma mater, the Albert Academy. I was in school with South Africans, all the way there that were helped by the Sierra Leone government just to help the South Africa as a state. So it's so sad, it's so shameful, it's so deplorable that these same South Africans today are turning against the brother Africans, their brothers and sister Africans, murdering them like animals, setting them alight, using machetes to hack them down to death. This is very, very disgraceful. And it's so shameful. People like us feel ashamed in the West because Western people are looking at this and saying to themselves, how can these people treat their brothers and sisters like this? So we are calling on the African governments, mainly the countries that are affected, Zimbabwe, Somalia, Nigeria, Ghana, for these countries to come together and call for an emergency summit at the AU to discuss this issue. To hold the South African government to account and tell the South African government that this is unacceptable, that their citizens, they are living in South Africa, and their protection is the responsibility of the South African states. that they are going to hold the South African government responsible, that these people have to be protected. And they want a guarantee from the South African government that these actions will never, I repeat, will never repeat themselves, because they're not going to tolerate it anymore, because it's happened too much. Several times it's happened now, and lots of Africans have been killed for nothing in South Africa. It's so sad for us Africans to see this. It's so shameful. I mean, the worst thing is, it's so shameful, because even Westerners are saying to us, how can South Africans treat their fellow Africans like this? Because they cannot imagine in the 21st century, with all the human civilization, with all the human advancements, with all the technological age that we are in, that people will resort to short actions against their fellow human beings. So there has to be strong statements from the other African leaders that this enough is enough, and this has to stop. And we hope the brothers and sisters that have perished in South Africa, their lives have not gone in vain. We will get justice for them. And this action, these deplorable actions, this barbaric action by South Africans has to stop, and it will stop forthwith. Again, I want to thank all your viewers, your listeners, and I want to thank you particularly for giving me this platform to discuss such an emotional issue. And I hope all of us have contributed one way or the other to bring some sort of reality, to bring some sort of semblance to this particular issue. And God help us all Africans, and God empower us, and God protect us, and give us leaders that will look after us and protect us. Thank you once more again, Brother Prince. And thank you to all your viewers.
Yes, Mr. Kamara. Yeah, thank you very much. I mean, powerfully said, and you can feel the emotion in the voice of the brother. And this is real. These are real issues. This is happening. I mean, the livelihood of people, the homes of people, the businesses of people, the lives of people have been destroyed. This concerns every one of us, you know. And we should all be worried. We should all be calling on our government, asking them what are they doing to take concrete steps. And this is what the brother has been speaking to. And I really applaud the brother. Okay. There is something going on. There is something actually going on. And you need to follow South Africa. You need to follow the land expropriation bill. You need to follow what the South Africans are calling for, that they're going to take their land. Come what may, they've said that they're going to take their land. How are we getting caught up, you know, in between the things they've said? But again, we'll leave that for another day. I also want to use this opportunity, as the brother have already done, to wish the family of the late Robert Gabriel Mugabe the greatest of condolences. As a Pan-Africanist, he was a brother and a friend. He stood for things, you know, yeah, which empowered Black Africans and his countrymen, Zimbabweans. Yes, along the way, he was human. That's why he said he's died many times before Jesus Christ, because some wished him dead, but in the end has finally come. That's why we want to use this opportunity to say, rest in peace, Gabriel. Till we meet again, thank you for the fight. The fight is not complete, but you took it to another level, and it's up to others to take that fight. Unfortunately, at this critical time, all we've got are hypocrites, sellouts, those that are willing to take the food, sweat, blood of their compatriots and give it to others, whether it's a plantation farm or cheap deal, whether it's by IMF, whether it's by World Bank, they do. But thank you, Mr. Mugabe. You also use the opportunity to empower your fellow Zimbabweans by making them one of the most educated people, if not in the world, but in many standards, by many standards in Africa. You are gone, but you will never, never be forgotten. The mistakes were made and some will try to capitalize on it. But what did you say? Tony Blair, take your Britain, leave my Zimbabwe alone. It did sound like you own Zimbabwe, and your antagonist will like to make that statement appear as if you own, or you were saying that you own Zimbabwe. What we do know as Pan-Africanists is you stood up for Zimbabwe. The resources are for Zimbabwe and the rest of it. It's not all rosy, but your work is done, sir, and you're gone. We will see again, Robert. I salute you, sir. Thank you. Superman, thank you very much. And listeners, I say this week, we're going to be having a Liberian academic, Clarence Yukonje Madison. I mean, we're going to be talking about everything from the roots to the top. On behalf of myself, Prince Emil Kroma, your host and presenter, today the 6th of September, I say good night to you. Goodbye to you all.
Come with good information. We are Empire Information. Lights on the darkness. Bring real news to we are people with no fakeness. Analyze comments on real issues. Making people understand what we've been through. The past, present of our issues. Then and now. It's coming to your door. So put you where you belong. It's right around the world. Then and now. Race, political violence. National issue, yeah. Fake news not get any space. Then and now. The most critical thinker, Prince Calamari, is now on the internet. Then and now. It's now online, it's now online. Prince Calamari. It's now online, it's now online. Then and now.
Family, good night. Please join me again anytime this week, yeah? And that.